What's up, folks? I'm Chris, your NFL writer here at Occupy Fantasy, here with a look at the giant 13-game main slate for Week 8 of the NFL season. We are going to be taking a look at some of the top plays for your lineups here on DraftKings that you can use on this week's upcoming slate. On the screen here, my favorite running back that we can deploy in our lineups this week is going to be Isaiah Pacheco. We have the Kansas City Chiefs as massive road favorites against the Denver Broncos. This is the second divisional game between the Chiefs and the Broncos, but it could not possibly be a better spot for Pacheco to succeed with Denver carrying the second worst rush defense in the league into this matchup. And I do think Pacheco is the best way for us to get exposure to the Chiefs and their second highest implied team total on this slate. Have some other low-risk plays in the lineup here on the screen for you to look at. I will talk about them throughout the rest of this video, but I am going to stick with the normal agenda of this show. If you've been with us before, you know that I like to look at the teams that are the biggest favorites on the slate and talk about their running backs a little bit up front. Pacheco's Chiefs are favored by 7 against Denver, so he is in that group of the big 4 teams I'm going to talk about on this slate because we do have 4 big favorites to discuss. So other than Pacheco's Chiefs, we have some other teams here to consider. The first being Miami and their 9.5 point favorite status against the New England Patriots at home. This is also going to be a second matchup between teams in the same division. Raheem Mostert, you see him listed questionable here. I am recording this on Thursday afternoon at about 4 o'clock on the East Coast. And we learned today that both Raheem Mostert and star wide receiver Tyreek Hill did return to practice. So I would expect Mostert to continue to draw the majority of the attempts at running back for the Dolphins. Saw a little bit of a negative game script last week on Sunday Night Football for the Dolphins against the Philadelphia Eagles. And Mostert's raw touches suffered as a result. See only 9 carries, 3 targets in the passing game. I would expect Miami to be much more efficient here against New England in this rematch. In the first game against the Patriots, a little bit of middle IQ analysis here, but in the first matchup with the Patriots in Foxborough, Mostert had 18 carries, 121 rushing yards. I think he's in line for a similar result here, and not necessarily catching massive ownership as of yet, according to the projections in our model. So with Mostert actually looking like a pretty good tournament play, but given the expected script here in betting markets, maybe a good play in low-risk lineups as well if we get some more value that opens up the slate. Other running backs that are in spots to succeed based off of the betting market information on this slate, we have Gus Edwards of the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens are favored by 8 points on the road against the Arizona Cardinals this week. And we have DeAndre Swift of the Philadelphia Eagles on the road against the Washington Commanders because the Eagles are also 7-point favorites, like the Chiefs are this week, against the Commanders in this matchup. The interesting thing about these big 4 running backs that are huge favorites this week, only Pacheco is amongst the leaders in projected ownership as of right now on this slate. Other than Pacheco, who is both heavily favored and going to be popular on this slate, there are 2 other popular running backs that I think are worth considering in your low risk or cash lineups this week. The first is Dallas's Tony Pollard. Fresh off of his bye, he's going to be at home here against the Los Angeles Rams. Pollard, just 7,500 here on DraftKings, has seen a ton of opportunities for Dallas, is underperforming his expected touchdowns on the season. We're hoping that is going to regress in a way that we can benefit from here in fantasy football. The Rams are below average defending the rush this season and slightly below average defending running backs in the passing game. So this is the proverbial get-right spot for Tony Pollard at home against the Rams. And there is one other running back that I think is viable for low-risk contests this week, high-risk contests as well, that's going to be very popular. A road running back, we have Breece Hall facing off against the New York Giants in what Jets and Giants fans I know affectionately refer to as the Stupid Bowl here, the matchup between both New York teams that actually play in New Jersey. Breece Hall will be drawing the start here against the Giants defense that is the 3rd worst by DVOA defending running backs this season, and we have seen his workload finally creep up to a level that we're most interested in here. Negative game script last time out against the Eagles, but saw decent work in the passing game, and we obviously saw what he did against those same Denver Broncos that we're targeting with Pacheco this week. So I like Breece Hall quite a bit on this slate, and I like pairing him with Isaiah Pacheco as a decent start to your low-risk lineups at the running back position. Probably want to play 3 running backs in low risk once again this week, so any of the running backs that I have discussed to this point in this video are well worth discussing. At the quarterback position, he was at the top of our quarterback model last week. He is at the top of our quarterback model once again here. Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens against the Arizona Cardinals on the road. With Baltimore favored by 8 points and the amount of work that Jackson gets in the running game in addition to his regular quarterbacking duties, Jackson's going to be an awesome play, not just in low risk, but also for high risk game stacks this week. That's why Baltimore is going to be one of our favorite stacks in the Occupy Fantasy Daily Plug for week number 8, which will be available on the website for subscribers as of Friday evening. So you certainly want to make sure that you head on over to the website and subscribe to get access to all of our top plays for week number 8. Much more in the plug than I can go over in this quick video reviewing the slate for you, and that is why it's a great thing to read. We saw Jackson absolutely explode against the Lions in a 38-6 victory last week. Well, he has an even better matchup this week here against Arizona, because Arizona is the second worst passing defense in the NFL thus far on the season, and Jackson has his full complement of weapons available now. We've seen Zay Flowers, we've seen Mark Andrews, Odell Beckham is coming on strong even, so he'd be interesting consideration in tournaments, but Zay Flowers also going to be very popular in low risk this week in this matchup, leading the team in target share. Wouldn't expect that to change here against Arizona. So you can expect to see a healthy amount of Zay Flowers in low risk lineups, even in those that don't include Lamar Jackson this week. Flowers going to be one of the most popular wide receiver plays on this slate this week. Most popular, in fact, on DraftKings and FanDuel, according to our projections. The others behind him, we've got Brandon Ayuk from the 49ers, Adam Thielen from the Carolina Panthers, and then some of the usual suspects, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, going to be some of the most popular wide receivers in all contest types this week. But sticking at the quarterback position, if you're not going to be playing Lamar Jackson, because that's a really expensive $8,100 price tag here on DraftKings, $8,800 over on FanDuel, our model was very, very correct about Gardner Minshew last week. That was one of the spots that I'll admit I got wrong. We're very, very high on Gardner Minshew. Again, number 2 in the Occupy model for DraftKings specifically this week. Just 1% projected ownership, so consider Minshew on the tournament side of things. But Jalen Hurts actually projected to be roughly the same ownership as Lamar Jackson on DraftKings and a little lower owned on FanDuel. Another interesting low-risk target that should be pretty popular. I think the one play on the board this week that will see a little bit of consideration purely because of its price is Sam Darnold from the San Francisco 49ers. And this does, to me, profile as more of a tournament play. I'm not sure I want to play Darnold in low risk, but I understand why people may land here if they want to jam some of the more expensive studs. Darnold, just $4,300 here on DraftKings, would in theory allow you to pay up for multiple players between Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, and some of those expensive running backs. If you want to build that way, we'll see by Saturday night, Sunday morning, how inactives are shaping up to see if this is truly a viable path in low-risk contest. But I do think for now we want to leave Sam Darnold alone in the high-risk streets this week. Darnold's inside the top 10 in the Occupy model this week, so definitely not the worst tournament play, but I do much prefer the Cincinnati side there if we're going to be playing some game stacks here this week with Cincinnati and San Francisco. So just to tie a bow around low risk, Jackson, probably the best option. Really expensive for a reason though. Jalen Hurts, similar situation. Highest applied team total, Tua Tagovailoa's Dolphins. He's always going to be in consideration for that reason. Patrick Mahomes, best pass blocking in the league, worst pass defense in the league facing Denver. Even more expensive than the popular plays this week at quarterback and low risk, so might be kind of hard to get to him. Maybe Dak Prescott, last man in, reasonable price here on DraftKings, high implied team total for the Cowboys. And then that's where we start considering Sam Darnold and the 49ers, who are still favored by 3.5 points at home against the Bengals this week, and he is all the way down here on the salary table, so that could be why people end up on Darnold. So that's quarterback. Running back went through pretty efficiently here for you. Zay Flowers at wide receiver, going to be the most popular play. Ayuk, Thielen, Chase Hill, Brown. But behind those big guys, some of the value that you'll see people probably go for in their lineups this week, going to have Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas's price has been stuck on $4,900 here for 3 weeks in a row. This will be the 4th week of that. And the targets have been pretty consistent. 7, 8, 7, 6, 9. So we could just simply take the value here with Thomas's 7 targets, play another value wide receiver, another one of the running backs I talked about earlier, and there you have a low-risk lineup here for week number 8 of the NFL season. Feels like one of those straightforward slates once again. At tight end, you see I have Musgrave slotted in here. His price doesn't seem to really move all that much. Does seem like in projected ownership tables, Musgrave is going to be amongst the most popular plays on the slate. Once again, we have him as the second most popular play of the week. The most popular play is going to be a few $100s more expensive. It's going to be Dalton Schultz on the road for the Houston Texans against the Carolina Panthers. And even Evan Engram from the Jacksonville Jaguars will see a healthy amount of ownership as well. We've seen a floor of 7 targets over the last 5 weeks. So Evan Engram going to be another option here, a little bit more expensive than the others. Obviously, every time Travis Kelce is on the slate, averaging roughly 4 fantasy points more than any other tight end that is available in fantasy football, he's going to be in consideration. Super expensive, carrying the same salary cost as Patrick Mahomes this week. DraftKings definitely, and FanDuel, definitely trying to make stacking the Chiefs a lot harder this week than it has been to date. Just something to think about with Kelce. But Mr. Swift here has definitely had a really, really strong recent few weeks here in the NFL, so I get why people would want to get to him here. I just think we have enough tight ends where we don't necessarily need to force him. We can get our exposure to the Kansas City Chiefs through the running back this week in low risk and probably still have a pretty nice path forward as a result. On defense, a couple of spots that are going to be annoyingly popular. We have the Jaguars on the road. They're going to be favored against Pittsburgh this week, so at 2,800 here on DraftKings, you will see them. You will also see the Atlanta Falcons. So Ryan Tannehill is not going to play for the Tennessee Titans this week. That means rookie Will Levis is going to draw the start. Malik Willis may play a little bit. We have a Falcons defense that isn't completely terrible, but the pricing is in a range where everyone's going to basically flock to either Jacksonville or Atlanta. And then the other defense that I think is reasonably popular on this slate, looking at our model, is actually the Seattle Seahawks, who are in a similar situation, playing P.J. Walker of the Browns at quarterback with Deshaun Watson slated to sit again here after making a little bit of a cameo last week. That's where everyone's going to be on defense. I think you can go with the cheaper ones between the Falcons and the Jaguars and still have a really good floor for your low-risk lineups. Let's talk about high risk. It's my favorite thing to talk about week in and week out. And obviously the Galaxy Brain Show, the Beyond the Model Show, that's what we really call it, with Moose and Brian. That's where they will really deep dive into some of the things the model is actually picking up on that we can play that are off the beaten path. On this show, I like to talk about the vanilla stacks, the bread and butter, where the field probably should be, even if it isn't. Tua Tagovailoa, Tyreek Hill. Miami has the highest implied team total on this slate at 28, just over 28 points right now, favored by 9.5 at home against the Patriots. And that's in a range where we're approaching that territory where we don't necessarily need to bring this back. Tua to Tyreek Hill. They've got hooked up for a touchdown in every game except one thus far this season. We'll see if the opportunity continues here in week number 8. Tyreek just averaging an absolutely obnoxious amount of targets. Spiked up to 15 last week against the Philadelphia Eagles. Only walked away with 88 yards on those 15 targets. So even though Tyreek is definitely not underperforming, you could argue there's room for him to regress a little bit back to his own average here against the Patriots here in week 8. Kendrick Bourne is probably the best Patriot to consider as a bringback if you want to stack this game up. With 13 games on this slate, I think there's a lot of playable options, so I don't know if you have to go this direction, but this is absolutely my favorite way to play the Miami stack this week. I'm in love with Cincinnati and San Francisco this week. I think the fact that Sam Darnold is going to be starting for the 49ers is probably good news for Joe Burrow and the Bengals. We can get Burrow, Chase, and Higgins pretty easily. Have a lot of salary left here. We know that Brandon Ayuk is going to be really popular. Occupy model here, guys. Looking at projected targets, Chase and Higgins right on top of the Occupy model with 12 projected targets each in our model. This, to me, is the most high upside stack on the board as far as a full game is concerned. Total has come down a little bit with the news that Brock Purdy is not going to play, but I think this is probably one of my favorite ways to play high-risk contests this week. You can get some of the real popular plays around it. Breece Hall at running back, Isaiah Pacheco at running back. You can get Musgrave in here as one of the popular plays at tight end. We can go to the Jaguars defense, the cheapest out of the popular group. Plenty of salary here to play another wide receiver or something like that to round out our lineups. You can come down on defense to get to a better player at either running back or wide receiver. This, to me, right here, my favorite game stack for week number 8 of the NFL season. This is a giant slate. We have some weird scheduling where the NFL decided to take off bye weeks here. So expect to see ownership spread out a lot more on this slate than it has been on some of the smaller slates that we've been working with. But I think we have a pretty good handle on how to handle week number 8 for you that we've gone over, not just here, but in the daily plug that'll be available at OccupyFantasy.com that, once again, you should subscribe to the website for to get access to. It gives you all of our top plays and lineups advice, contests to target. Definitely something that's worth reading week in and week out. We really appreciate you watching this video. Hope you guys have enjoyed the start to the NBA season. We're super active here on YouTube and in our Discord talking about the NBA every single night. I'll be active Sunday mornings talking about the NFL slates as well for you. A little bit of a pre-lock discussion. Been doing that for the first 7 weeks of the season. Should be continuing that for the rest of the season as well. Bottom line here, a lot of stuff for you to enjoy. If you want to make sure that you are alerted when the content is scheduled and available, the best thing for you to do, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. We've got a lot of videos coming out every single day now that we're into the full NBA season and NFL season at the same time. So the best way for you to know when we have something new for you is to make sure you're getting notifications when you're subscribed to the channel. Good luck in week number 8 of the NFL season, and I'll be back to talk to you next week about week number 9.